Hello, my name is Owen McCarrick, and welcome to Drop Fantasy Football. Um, Congrats on surviving week one, and we have a couple players today we're going to talk about. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. All right, so first we're going to be taking a look at A.J. Brown. This is a dud on Thursday Night Football. A lot of people are going to be eliminated with the A.J. Brown performance. Pretty disappointing, but I think the most fundamental thing that we have to look at is how much has the player's value changed. So, for instance, A.J. Brown just got one target, I believe, in this game for 8 yards. But has our fundamental idea of A.J. Brown changed? A.J. Brown was a first-round pick just a couple weeks ago whenever you did your draft. And at the end of the day, A.J. Brown is a highly variable player. So maybe ultimately he's not the best for the Guillotine format. But I think he ultimately retains most of that value. So despite his performance, I would argue that we can still bid pretty aggressively on A.J. Brown. I would bid in the low 20s on the low end and anywhere up to $30 to $40 if you really need a receiver. Because of his performance, I think people are going to shy away from it, and so maybe shoot around that 30 range. In the same game, we have Devonta Smith. 3 receptions, 16 yards. Certainly better than his teammate, but still a little bit disappointing. You'll see Devonta Smith get dropped a couple places. I don't think people are out on him, and they shouldn't be. His value has not changed whatsoever. And so I would be bidding maybe about 12 on the low end, high teens, if you're really targeting, again, like a flex receiver. All right. Moving into the next game, we have the Chargers and Chiefs. This was the Friday night game. Biggest player here was Xavier Worthy. Let's see if we can scroll down and get him in here. Xavier Worthy got hurt very early into this game, so I would not take his stats as a reflection of him as a player, but the injury is certainly an issue. We might not see Worthy back for a couple weeks, and so even though he has a lot of upside as a player, injuries, suspensions, anything that keeps you out for the beginning of a season is going to be detrimental in this Guillotine format. So if you want to stash Worthy, if you feel strong about your team, you finish in the top 5 in points week 1, you can bid 5, maybe even up to $10, but I wouldn't be too aggressive on it because you want to prioritize winning these early weeks, and we don't know how long he's going to be out for just yet. In the same game, if we scroll back up here, we have Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco put up 4.8 points, which is certainly serviceable compared to some other players, but the most interesting part was his carry split. As you can see here, we have Pacheco with 5, Hunt with 5. Not particularly great. I don't think this is indicative of how the Chiefs wanted this game to go, and I don't think it's indicative of how it will go the rest of the season. I'm still very big on Pacheco. My thoughts on him have not changed because of this game, and so I would feel comfortable bidding 8 on the low end, maybe targeting him around 11 or 12, and maybe even up to 15 if you are one of those running back desperate teams. And also in the same game, but on the opposite side of the ball, we have Najee Harris. Now, Najee Harris I am concerned about. Najee Harris got 1 carry for 5 yards. And you can see with Marion Hampton there, immediately week 1 took the entire lion's share of the workload. I think that will be how it is with coming weeks. I think Najee Harris has value as a handcuff for Marion Hampton, but this is not a 1A, 1B. This is a 1, and Najee Harris is the 2. If you need a running back, I would maybe bid about $2, maybe even up to 4 or 5, but I don't believe that the Najee Harris we saw out there is great. I think the upside case might be that he is recovering from his eye injury. Maybe he will get worked in more as he acclimates to this offense, but Marion Hampton getting 15 carries week 1 to Najee's 1, I don't think we see Najee play a huge role in this offense. And then we can move over to the Steelers game. The only player that really let us down here is going to be Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson, rookie running back for the Steelers, I believe drafted out of the 3rd round. In your fantasy league, he might have went close to the 7th round, so he should have been starting on a lot of these Guillotine teams since the teams are a lot deeper. Now, unfortunately, we received reports that Caleb was the 3rd running back in the depth chart prior to week 1. I'm not a big depth chart guy. I think a lot of the times it is just for the fanfare of it. When you see RJ Harvey as the 5th string running back going into week 1, but you actually know he'll be splitting time. I wondered if Caleb Johnson, that was the same thing. It turns out, as you can see here, it is certainly not. The Pittsburgh Steelers were pretty interested in trying out Kenneth Gainwell as their RB2, and they showed it, right? He has 7 carries to Caleb Johnson's 1. I am very concerned about Caleb Johnson's value moving forward. I think that he's a rookie, so there's plenty of upside, there's plenty of potential for him to grow, but I would not be picking him up with the intent of starting him anytime soon. That being said, because he's a rookie and he might acclimate to this team, maybe split times with Jalen Warren, you can bid anywhere up to $5 to $7, but purely as an upside case, purely to sit on your bench, I would not be picking him up to fill a hole in a starting running back position on your team. Heading over to the Commanders versus the Giants, we have Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, not a terrible showing. 2 of 4 for 27, putting up 4.7 points. Might be on a couple waivers. You got to wonder where he's at. He has a new contract. He should have a strong year ahead. My thoughts about Terry McLaurin have not changed. Despite Deebo Samuel and a couple others here getting more yardage and targets, I think Terry McLaurin's still the clear one on this team. I think he will be fairly consistent throughout the year. I would be bidding close to 15 to 20 to try and get Terry McLaurin on my team. You can even bid higher if you so choose. But yeah, I think Terry McLaurin has value throughout the season, and I would still be bidding aggressively on him if he hits your waivers. Heading over to this Bucs-Falcons game, the only player I believe that was worth noting was Cade Otton. We'll see if we can get him in here. So Cade Otton, 3 targets, 0 receptions. I do think that was a little bit of variance for Cade Otton. I think most of the weeks he will have about 1 to 2 receptions, maybe a couple yards. But I think at this point, Cade Otton is not someone you want to be starting. Maybe he's worth a bench stash, but you already have a banged-up Tampa Bay receiving core with Godwin out, McMillan out. And so if Otton cannot step up in that situation, I do not trust his value throughout the season, and there's not really any upside for him. You can make a $0 bid on him to stash on your bench, but without the upside, I am not really thinking of doing so. The next player we have here is an interesting case. We have Tank Bigsby. So now, looking at his split on the Jaguars this past week, he was the RB2, but firmly behind Travis Etienne. Etienne had 16 carries to Bigsby's 5, but Bigsby was just also recently traded to the Eagles. So Bigsby will be sitting behind, if we can go back here, he'll be sitting behind Saquon Barkley. When you're behind Saquon Barkley, it is not a 1A, 1B. Tank Bigsby will be the firm B behind Saquon Barkley. Now, the Eagles also did say this is not because of Will Shipley's injury. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that might be directly correlated to Will Shipley's injury. But as you're seeing here, Tank Bigsby might be getting about 3 carries a game as the RB2. I think he serves as a valuable handcuff with upside there. If Barkley were to get injured, I'm not sure that we would see a committee between Dillon and Bigsby and Shipley, depending on his health. So maybe there's some upside there. I would bid maybe 1 to 2 on a low end, maximum 5 for a handcuff running back like this. I would not bid too aggressively here. Just a quick note, all of these are based on a 100%. If your league is out of 1,000, 500, you can scale it up accordingly. Moving into our next game, this was a tough one. You're going to see a lot of Browns and Bengals on your waivers this week. And I think that all starts with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, oftentimes the first overall pick in fantasy. This is the second straight year with the first overall pick being quite disappointing, at least in many leagues. Christian McCaffrey last year did not play week 1. And now we have Jamar Chase and the Bengals struggling week 1, which seems to be an annual tradition. Jamar Chase has 5 targets, which is solid, but only 2 receptions, 26 yards. I have no doubts that Jamar Chase is one of the top 3, top 2, top 1 receiver in the NFL. I would be bidding aggressively to get Jamar Chase. Now, of course, there's going to be this variance that comes with the Bengals offense. Heck, we've seen it the last few years. It might take them 3 weeks to get going. Now, they did win this game, and he did get 5 targets, but this is Jamar Chase. If you can get him for the low 30s, 30 to 35, that's a home run. But more realistically, he's a big name. People are going to want him, and you're going to have to bid about $50-ish to get him. I would not bid more than 60, 61, but to each their own. If you want to break the bank on Jamar Chase, you're more than welcome to. I just think that there will be plenty more value as the season goes on, and so maybe don't try and spend all of it right away. It is worth a thought, though. It would be great to acquire Jamar Chase so early into the season and have him starting, locked in as your wide receiver 1 for the rest of the year. So I understand, but try not to bid maybe more than 50 to 60% of your FAAB. The other player in this game that we want to look at is going to be Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford, at least from what I was hearing before the season started, was supposed to be the starter, with Dylan Sampson serving as a rotational back, maybe receiving back. And it looks like Dylan Sampson was getting the majority of the work share straight out of week 1. Now, the tough thing for both of these players, between Sampson and Ford, is that Quinshaw Judkins will also be coming back relatively soon, potentially. I'm not sure about his suspension, but he did sign with the Browns on a fully guaranteed contract, which props to his agent. And so Jerome Ford already being the RB2 behind Dylan Sampson doesn't bode well for his value. Not to mention, I think there's going to be a lot of QBs moving around this team, and I think the Joe Flacco version of his offense is going to be the best one we see, unless we see one of these rookie QBs step up and completely revamp the team. So I am going to be out on Jerome Ford. I don't think he holds much value. Maybe he can be a serviceable player to get you through 1 to 2 weeks just to plug in a running back slot, but I would bid $2 to $3, maybe $5 max, but I am mostly out on Jerome Ford. Moving into one of the more surprising games of the week, we have the Dolphins and the Colts. A player who did fine for this week, Tyreek Hill. We have 6 targets, 4 for 40. That's 8 points in a PPR league. Not terrible, but the issue here is the atmosphere to the Dolphins, and as mentioned earlier, has the player's inherent value changed? And with Tyreek Hill, I think the answer is yes. Tyreek Hill is drafted oftentimes in these Guillotine leagues in the early to mid-second round, with the hopes that he would be potentially back to his form just 2 years ago, where he was drafted, believe it or not, as a top 3 pick. I know. Times have changed. And I think Tyreek Hill is nearing the end of his age cliff, and I think this Dolphins offense is not what we were expecting out of it. Now, of course, this is week 1. Things can change very fast, but this was a rough game to watch. If you got to see any of it, did not feel good. Tyreek Hill did well in spite of this offense, and there's certainly a chance that Tyreek Hill demands a trade midseason, pulls some shenanigans, and is not playing for this team. I am worried with what happens to Tyreek Hill as the season goes on. So sure, he had a serviceable week 1, but I would not bid very aggressively on him heading into this first round of waivers. Maybe in the 15 to 20 range would be something I'd be happy about. If you really need a flex wide receiver, you can bid into the mid-20s, 25, 26% of your FAAB, but I am leaning out on Tyreek Hill. He has so much potential and so much upside that I can completely understand wanting to bid a lot more money on him, but maybe give it a week and see how he does. Moving into this Broncos-Titans game, this was an interesting one. This was very heavily favoring the Broncos going into the game, but the Tennessee Titans stayed in it for most of the game. As you can see in the score bug here, it was just a 1-point game going into the 4th. That being said, Bo Nix did not look like he was taking the second-year jump that we were all expecting him to. And this happens from time to time with year 2 quarterbacks. The natural assumption is that from your year 1 to year 2, you will improve. But that doesn't always happen. We saw that with CJ Stroud last year, and we may see that with Bo Nix this year. So this is not something to shy away from and write off. There's a real chance that Bo Nix is not improving going into year 2. I still think it's worth to give him time. Titans defense is better than people expect, I believe. But the player I want to talk about here is going to be Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims was a sleeper pick for many people coming into the year. He had just 4 targets, 3 for 12. And I don't think Marvin Mims is solidifying himself as the clear wide receiver 2 on this team. Troy Franklin received about 6 targets, Evan Ingram 4, Courtland Sutton, the clear wide receiver 1. And I think Marvin Mims is just part of the receiver core. I don't think that Marvin Mims has the chance to establish himself very much. I think if it would have happened, we'd maybe be hearing more about it, or we would have seen it in this game just through the target share. And so the fact that we did not is concerning to me. I do think he still has upside. with that in mind, I might be bidding $2 or $3 on him. If you can get him for 0 or 1, by all means, that is a great bench stash of a player. But I would not be bidding more than $3 on the lottery ticket of Marvin Mims. Receiver on the other end here, we have Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett came into this game as, I believe, the wide receiver 2 or 3. I'm not sure where he placed on the depth chart compared to Ella Yamanor. But as you can see, Tyler Lockett, just 1 target, no receptions. And it's very clearly seen in their target share that Calvin Ridley is their 1. And I believe that Yamanor is going to be there too. 7 targets is a lot going into week 1 for a rookie. I think he and Ridley will command the primary targets in this offense, with a little bit of the targets going to the running back position, of course, with Pollard and Spears when he returns, as well as the tight end position in Chig and Gunnar Helm. That being said, I don't think that leaves much for Lockett. And there's a couple other younger guys behind Lockett on the depth chart, like Kamir. And so I believe that we are out on Lockett. I think the best upside case is an injury ahead of him and Cam Ward overperforming. But even still, I'm not quite sure how that does for Lockett's value. Lockett might be worth a $0 bid if he's on your waivers, but he also might just belong on waivers until further notice at least. And then the last player that I wanted to highlight was part of this fantastic game between the Ravens and the Bills. And we have, let's see here, Mark Andrews. He should be under receiving. Mark Andrews, 1 target, 1 reception, 5 yards, 1.5 points. If you can remember back to last year, Mark Andrews had a couple of dud games, complete zeros on the scoreboard. So, hey, 1.5 points, we will take it. But Mark Andrews, kind of similar to A.J. Brown at the start, is going to be one of those high variance players. I don't think my opinion on Mark Andrews has changed that much. I think Mark Andrews is a high variance player, and this happens to him. For that reason, I don't think he's as valuable in a Guillotine format, but I do think he's still worth bidding on. He might still remain around tight end 8, and so with that in mind, if you are weaker at the tight end position, I would maybe bid closer to $7 to $10 on him, potentially up to 12 or 13 if you really aggressively want to fill your tight end slot, but I would not be bidding on Mark Andrews to fill a flex spot because of his variance. I think it would be better off spending that money on a receiver or running back, potentially with upside to put on your bench. And so, with that in mind, those are a couple players that I just wanted to highlight for week 1. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it down below. And I also have a spreadsheet link down below with all of my expectations for week 1 bidding. So feel free to use that as a guide. It is perfectly customizable. You can add in your league's FAAB and your specific FAAB situation, whether you have a bunch or you have a little. And so feel free to check it out. Hope you liked the video and stay safe out there. Thank you.